Welcome to the Senior Project 2013. This tutorial is designed to help you generate some ideas for your senior project and to help you see how you can use the library resources to find information on the topic and hopefully move it down to a more specific topic and research question. So, unfortunately, research does not look like this, where you have a question and there's an answer and you find it. If it ever feels like that, it means you're doing it wrong. It means your question is too easy to answer and the answer is too easy to find. And so most people already know the answer to your question, which makes your project and your paper sort of irrelevant. Research looks more like this. It's this sort of circuitous process where you start with a question, and that question may lead you to newspapers or magazines. And then you might want some more in-depth information, so you read a book, which then takes you back to your original question and maybe makes you realize you have the wrong question and what the question really is something else, which may send you to some academic articles to get some scholarly research, which may send you back to reference material, until you finally arrive at an answer, and maybe that's not the definitive answer, but it's the answer you need to present because the papers do. So be prepared for this kind of process where you're going to be circulating through these different types of reading material, trying to find information to help you answer your question. And if the question is sufficiently complex, you should be using all these types of articles and literature. Carol Guilthau, who's a researcher, has charted students' levels of uncertainty during the research process, and what she found is that those levels of uncertainty and anxiety spike in sort of two places. One, at the very beginning of the process, when you're trying to figure out what it is you want to actually research, and then during the exploration phase, where you've figured out your research question more or less, and you go out and try to find information for it. So just be aware that if you're feeling anxious and you're feeling uncertain during this process, that's normal. That's what you should be feeling. That means you are doing it right. It gets better, but there's going to be some times during this process that are going to make you sort of angry and confused and anxious. So just be okay with that. What I would recommend is that you just find subjects through reading. A lot of people feel like they don't start reading until they figure out their research question, but that's not true at all. You can't get to your research question until you've read a lot to kind of figure out what that question may be. And so you may want to look at magazines. This is an interesting article about this woman who has a sort of senior project where she tries to outsource all her work for a book club party to others. And it turns out there's a lot of sites like this one, Get Friday, where people sign up, generally 20-somethings who are unemployed or underemployed, and will take bids on projects that people want to do. And in this case, the woman didn't want to buy the food or prepare the food or even read the book. And so she outsourced all that information to other people to mixed results. And so her paper ends up being an exploration of these outsourcing sort of businesses and jobs and what effect that had on her, book party plans. These two magazines have interesting stories about the science of happiness and optimism. There's a lot of people thinking that now you can sort of learn to be happy. The Discover article has this great sort of project that this writer took on where he downloaded this app, MoodKit, Mood Improvement Tools, and used it for a month to see if it had any effect on his happiness levels. And he also does a lot of research on whether or not it's even possible for people to change their happiness levels or if that's something that's kind of ingrained in our DNA. This is similar to a book that we have in the library called The Happiness Project, in which author Gretchen Rubin tries a different sort of technique to be happier each month and has sort of mixed results with different things. This is an interesting article from Time Magazine, in the recent Time Magazine, that talks about how easy it is to get your genetic tests done. This site will give it to you for $99, and what that does is it gives you all the information encoded in your DNA about, what are some things that you have, some markers that you may have that make you susceptible to cancer or Alzheimer's or diabetes. And this information is really important, but it also carries with it, some ethical issues about what you're going to do with this information and how private this information remains. Lastly, if you're looking for a project and want to start with something because you really want to make something, Make Magazine, it has a lot of terrific ideas. In this article, they have this great project in which this person took drawings that children made and then transformed them into a three-dimensional toy in which she gave to the child. And she created this whole business and doing this sort of project. And in the magazine, it talks a lot about the research of toys and how they aid and assist child development. So there's a lot of kind of interesting information on that as well. So those are just a few ideas that I gleaned from looking at the most recent magazines in the library, and I would recommend you kind of come find your favorite magazine that's related to a topic of interest you have, whether that's sports or whether that's fashion or whether that's entertainment, and see what's being written in these magazines to help you kind of get ideas for the kind of project you might like to do and the kind of paper you might like to write. We also have a lot of resources on our website. If you go to the Los Altos Library website and click on LibGuides, and then click on Senior Project, we have a LibGuide Senior Project that breaks down the project into the various stages. These stages you'll see in the tabs at the very top. So you may want to check out our brainstorming page. It has tutorials to help you kind of generate ideas, as well as links to our databases, magazines, and catalog to find topics of interest for you. What you're going to do is start off with a very broad topic, but you're going to have to read and kind of look at that topic until you find an issue that people are discussing and debating, something where there's maybe a little controversy, so that you can write a paper that isn't just a summary of information. And eventually you'll get to that point where you have a very specific research question you are examining. What you're going to be doing is sort of taking this academic group of people who are, answering that question in a very different ways and figuring out where you fit in with that group of people. And so it's important to find an issue that where there is a lot of discussion.